Hey there, emerging expat! You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm Victoria from Expats Everywhere's podcast, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you, YouTube travelers, and our resident of Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kalie. Each week they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, join Kalie and Virginia as they discuss the relaxed atmosphere of Braga. They also touch on Virginia's journey of writing educational books for children and adults to help them learn Portuguese.
What's up, expats and travelers alike? Welcome back to Expats Everywhere Presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast. Kalie, how you doing?
I'm doing well. If you're watching on YouTube, then you'll see that we're not in our normal setting behind us. We are currently in the U.S. traveling, visiting family, so we are at Josh's dad's house right now.
That's right. I think this has been the backdrop for a couple videos, but it's been a number of years.
Yes, we were visiting last time 2 years ago, and I'm sure we did something here. Probably in this very room, the loft.
Yes. So if the video quality is not so great, it's because we don't really have enough lights on our face, but hopefully the audio is okay because we've brought our fancy mic.
Right. It'll be different than the other Rode mics that we have.
Yeah.
But we do have at least a good mic. Anyway, also,
we wanted to keep the quality up for you guys.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Don't let it pass by
I'm doing
without me
really well.
asking.
Just met up with a contact that I've actually not seen in person, but we've met. We were introduced through the digital world, and then now we were able to meet up flesh. In the flesh.
In the flesh, yeah.
So that was good.
So let's chat a little bit about what's going on with us, and then we'll get to who we have today on the podcast, which will be really exciting. So like we said, we have been traveling in the U.S., and then we're doing a transatlantic cruise heading back to Europe. This will be the second time we've done this. We did it 2 years ago, so we're excited about that. And being back in the States. Oh, one thing I do want to note is that we will be doing a podcast about what it's like being back in the States. Because, again, 2 years ago was the last time we were here. So what does it feel like? How has it been? We will be unpacking that in a podcast.
Yeah, we just got a bunch of questions yesterday on our patron-only group chat. And we have these calls once a month for our patrons on Patreon. And if you are part of that, thank you very much. But it was great to answer some of those questions, and obviously it's very personal to our perspective. It's not everybody's experience, but we shared how we were feeling being back.
So we'll unpack that a little more on a podcast because we can really go into detail, 30, 45 minutes of that. So I think that'll be interesting for people wondering what it's like being back, because when you travel or you move abroad, especially moving, and you don't go back to your home country for a while, then what's it like? Is there that reverse culture shock, and how does it feel to go back for the first time if you've been away for a while?
Yeah, and I'm just going to be quiet. Otherwise, I will start answering those questions.
Yeah, definitely. So we will get to that in an upcoming podcast. Other than that, of course, we've got all the different people that we like to interview on the podcast, some that have lived, some that provide services. So we're trying to get as much content out to you through the podcast and, of course, the channel. What else is going on?
I mean, that's basically it. For me personally, I've not been able to go to the project site to see what's happening with our real estate development. I have been getting some photos and just general communications, but not actually being on the ground is a little bit of a bummer because I like being really hands-on with what's going on there. Mm-hmm. But things are looking really good. We're starting to build some serious momentum despite the bad weather that has been really hitting Portugal. It's not just been in Porto.
Portugal and Spain.
Yeah,
we have friends in the south of Spain who said it's been raining a lot. We've been getting amazing weather here, so.
But funny enough, the first week we were here, when we were in the Baltimore area, the weather was bad.
Yeah,
it was
did
rainy.
Have some rain.
It was cold. It was very cold for being April.
Right. I think that my brother was saying that that's kind of typical though. April, yo-yos. It's one of those areas where it could be really warm and sunny, and you're out in shorts, or it could be cool and rainy.
Yeah.
Which it was cool and rainy. But now we're doing great.
Doing great.
Okay, so that's what's going on with us. Obviously, we've got, videos on Expats Everywhere Explores, Luxembourg, and then Expats Everywhere. We've got NHR 2.0 that we've just talked about. We'll have some city guides coming out, some stuff about crypto. So that's the channels. Shall we talk about our guest for today?
Absolutely.
So this is an interesting one.
My home state.
Her name is Virginia, which we were in Virginia. But she and her family moved to Braga. And what I really like about this interview is she's a family with younger kids, and they're in Braga, which you don't normally hear that. Generally, it's maybe those who are retired or who their kids have left the nest. They're empty nesters and are on their own. So that go for Braga because of aspects like it's flat, it's a little quieter, not a super big city, but still has amenities. So generally you don't hear families moving there. So this is what I really like about this chat with her is she talks about what it's like to have kids and be a family in Braga.
Yep.
That's
yeah.
it. Yep.
No, I mean,
yeah.
it was really cool connecting with her. Gosh, it was months ago now where she actually sent us some books for our daughter to check out and see how Valencia was able to get on with these books that are both in English and in Portuguese, European Portuguese, with pronunciation guides. So that was really cool, kind of getting to know who this person is that sent these books over to us.
Yeah, so mainly what happened is she and her family moved to Portugal, and her kids were young and they were looking for some beginner like words, simple phrases, books that were fun to look at, good for everyone in the family, but they could learn. And they found that there were books out there, but they weren't giving the pronunciation, especially the European pronunciation or some of the European words, European Portuguese, of course. So she's like, okay, we're reading these books, but we don't know if we're actually saying the word the right way. And she and I even talk about sometimes when you do that, you have in your head what the word should be, and you've been saying it wrong for so long because you don't have a pronunciation guide that you don't realize that you've been saying it wrong. And then it's even harder to reverse that because you've said it wrong for so long or for some period of time as you're learning. So what she did is she set out to create these books, and she's just in the beginning. There's only about 8 to 10 books now, but she wants to have more with not just words and simple phrases, but even more so that they're good for all levels. But it gives the Portuguese, European Portuguese, and then the English translation and the pronunciation of it. So it's really great. So she sent those to Sia, and Sia loves them. So what we're going to do as well, and she and I talk about this a little bit, but she wants to do a giveaway for you guys, for our podcast listeners. So
Nice.
What we'll be doing is we will be putting stuff on Instagram, and it's really easy. All you have to do is say, hey, I want to be entered into this. So we're going to tag her on her website, Thrifty Explorations, and her Instagram, and you can just enter the giveaway and get a free book if you want.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this show is really packed full of what living in Braga is like.
Yes.
Targeted towards families.
Not necessarily.
Cool.
No.
And then also talking about language acquisition and her personal journey in that, and then how she developed this book
Right,
series.
these books, because she's not an author, and she talks about it was more out of necessity, and I think that that's something that happens when you move abroad. Sometimes you start a hobby or a business out of necessity because you find that others could really benefit from it, and that's kind of what happened. She started it off for her kids, and then,
Yeah, I mean, I've personally enjoyed traveling with these books because they're small.
Yeah.
So they're not too weighty. Mm-hmm. And then it just keeps us connected to Portugal while we're traveling because we're back in the U.S. I feel like Valencia, I don't know, we haven't talked about this, but I feel like Valencia is loving being back in like an all English environment.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
It's a little annoying. I'm not going to lie.
Maybe, but we did bring the
very
books. Very
comfortable here in the all English environment.
Maybe she'll be one of those children that lives abroad, grows up abroad, but then moves back to her home country, the U.S.
Maybe.
We know people like that.
We do. All right, it's time to get to the show.
Let's do it.
All right, but before we do that, let's talk about this week's sponsor, Green Ocean Global Advisors.
Yes, we always recommend, no matter where you are in the moving process, to get your finances in order. So that's in your home country and then the country that you're moving to.
And speaking about homes, what if you sell your house before leaving or do it after? What are the capital gains implications like? Well, a financial advisor will be able to walk you through this type of thing.
And what about distributions? Maybe you have a 401k or a pension and you need to figure out how much you should be drawing from for the lifestyle that you're going to have.
Now, you can use this link in the description section below to talk to John from Green Ocean Global Advisors to see if he's a fit for you. You'll have a free 15-minute consultation just for being an Expats Everywhere listener. So you can use that to get your free 15 minutes. Click the link in the description section below. Now, on to the show.
Virginia, thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk to you about why you moved your family to Braga, where you came from, and then what you're doing there. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. And why don't you tell our listener where you moved from?
We moved from Florida. I'm originally from there. And we just, we decided to move to Portugal, a lot of different reasons. And we did a scouting trip. And we loved all of Portugal, but the minute we came into town, it felt like home. It was kind of strange. It just felt the atmosphere, the people, everything just really felt comfortable and welcoming, and we've never been happier.
Okay, so and you found that out on your scouting trip when you were visiting places that Braga just seemed like the place?
It did. And the funny thing is, I thought for sure Porto was going to be like the it spot because it's so beautiful. It's right on the water, and we're from Florida near the coast. And we do love Porto. It's a wonderful city. But Braga just had a very kind of quiet, comfortable feel that we fell in love with, especially the children.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always tell people. You can research, you can watch YouTube videos, you can do all of that, but you got to get into a city and get like the feel, or I like to use the word, the vibe for yourself, because someone might love a city, but another person might hate a city. You know, that's why people live all over the place. So yeah, you can think that you'll want one place, but you might actually end up in another city.
Exactly.
Okay. So then why did you decide to leave the US in the first place? And then what kind of drew you to Portugal in general?
Well, overall, I just felt like the societal norms, the culture of the US no longer aligned with what I wanted and what I wanted for my family. I didn't see a bright future for my kids. And so we decided to take a look. We looked at a lot of different countries, a lot of different parts of the world. And every time we were looking, we wanted quality of life, cost of living. We wanted education to be foremost. We wanted it to be a happy place. And every single time, Portugal was at the top of the list. And as we researched more, it just seemed like Portugal was going to be the right fit. But until we came here to really visit, especially with the kids, that's when we knew.
Yeah, because you're not too sure until you actually visit.
Exactly.
Did you have, what were some other countries that also were maybe top of your list?
Spain was one of them. Coming from Florida, Spanish is widely spoken. Of course, it's a little different, but close enough that you can get by. France. We even looked at some of South America, looked at Uruguay and Ecuador, but none of those had the safety, the stability. It just didn't have all of the things that we were hoping for. Whereas Portugal did. It had everything.
Oh, Portugal was the whole package.
It is.
Even with all the bureaucratic issues that everyone talks about.
Yeah, it's worth it though.
Okay. Okay, good. We'll get to that. Did you look anywhere in Asia? Just curious.
We did. I have a family member from Asia, and she's always talking about how wonderful it is in Malaysia. And that was one of the places that we considered, but it didn't have everything.
Yeah.
So, but yes, we did look at a few different options. Malaysia was probably the top of the list.
Okay. Yeah. Malaysia is great. And do you have family back in the States where it would be like, Southeast Asia is pretty far from the East Coast of the US. So do you have family in Florida?
We do.
Okay.
We've got a lot of family in Florida. We've got family in a few other places, Vermont. But yeah, most of them are in Florida, and it would be quite a journey. We have had family come to visit us here. My husband's father's actually trying to move here now because he loves it so much.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been great.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah. So being on the East Coast in the US, Portugal is, a lot closer than if you would maybe go even to some places in South America, but definitely like Southeast Asia too.
Yeah.
Okay. So Portugal was the whole package. So tell us a little bit about your journey. What visa did you come on? What are you doing now? What's that like?
Sure. So we decided to go with the digital nomad visa. My husband works for a company from the US. Unfortunately, when I decided that we were going to move here, I knew that my company would not allow me to work from abroad. You can't even log in from abroad on vacation at this particular company. So I realized that I was going to have to do something else. And my husband kept his job, and he's very pleased. It's worked out pretty well, even with the time difference. And then I decided to start writing books for kids to kind of help them with their language learning journey. But so it worked out. The digital nomad visa was a good fit for us.
Okay, and we'll talk about the books in a minute because we have some and Sia loves them, so I want to get into that. But before, let's talk a little bit about the visa process. So, did your husband know that his job would keep him on even if he moved abroad, or did he have to have like a tricky conversation with HR?
Sort of. So he came to them and said, "Hey, we'd like to move abroad," and they're like, I don't think so. And he was like, "Okay, well then I'm going to find another company."
Okay,
And they said, "You know what? Let's pump the brakes. Maybe we can make this work." And so they did. So we made the decision. We're moving.
yeah.
So you're either going to kind of go with us or we're going to do it on our own.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with Josh as well. Like before we moved, he had a side job, and the company policy was that you could live abroad, even when you traveled or lived. But somewhere along the way, like when we were applying for the visa, the company decided, okay, we're just not going to let anyone live abroad anymore, and they didn't really tell anyone. So then it was kind of one of these funny conversations because like HR contacted him and was like, "We hear that you're moving abroad," almost like very shyly asking him, and he was like, "Yes," because it's like we're doing it no matter what. Whether like I keep this job or not. And they're like, "Well, we don't allow that anymore." And he's like, "Okay, well, here's my 2-week notice."
There you go.
I mean, because it is what it is. Like we were moving, whether he had a job or not. So, but you knew before applying that the company thought it was okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you had the stability of that and the D8, and then you just planned your budget on only his salary because you knew that you wouldn't have one. Okay. All right.
It's
so then
big change.
yeah, I bet. Okay. So you move to Braga, and Braga is where you landed first, right? Because you'd done the scouting trip and you said, we love Braga. So when you were on the scouting trip, actually, had you looked at schools?
We did.
Okay.
When we first started coming and doing the scouting trip, we thought, well, if we go with an international school, it will ease the children into it. Won't be quite an abrupt change. But once we got here, we realized the kids are so young. They don't need that kind of stepping stone. They can just be thrown into it and they will adapt. And they did.
Okay.
We ended up in a private school and we absolutely adore it. And the kids became fluent in about like 3 months. It was wild. And he's constantly still telling me, "Oh no, it's like this, Mom." He's so good.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's just matrixed right in there, right?
Yes.
It's not
kids
fair.
Are right.
How old are your kids?
They are 7 and 4.
Okay. And how long have you been here?
About a year and a half, almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in June.
Okay. Because I think for your oldest then, so 7 now, so around 5 when moving, but still no issues with the adaptation period with the language because everything was in Portuguese. They're in Portuguese private school. And everything was fine.
Yeah, it was sort of like a sink or swim, but the school is really great. They made sure that he had all the support he needed. He had after school classes to kind of bring him up to speed and make sure that he was able to follow everything. And he did great. We're very pleased.
Good. Yeah. Because I think some families are worried about that with kids, like how is it going to be? Because when we first moved here, our daughter was 9 months old. And then we didn't actually get her into school till closer to 2, almost 3. So that's a little easier of adaptation, right? Portugal's kind of all she knows. But when the kids are a little older, it's, what's going to happen? Is my kid going to be able to adapt, especially not knowing any Portuguese? So, but kids are quite fluid and flexible, a little easier than we are as adults.
Absolutely. And he has other friends that he's made that are upperclassmen that came and started there. And they've also adapted very well. It's really surprising. Even the kids that are quite a bit older than he is have just kind of thrown themselves into it and have thrived.
Good. And they're American also.
Yes.
Well, so there's some Americans at the school. Are there any other nationalities at the school?
Oh, tons. It's brilliant. I love it. He has classmates from Spain, from Pakistan. I'm sure Ukraine, Russia. He has a multinational class and it is fabulous. I am thrilled.
That's a lot of fun. Have you done anything with the families?
We have, yes.
Oh, good.
We've become relatively close with some of the Portuguese, obviously, the Portuguese families, and then some of the Russians. They have a wonderful art class, and the kids just love that. So they've become more involved with that community. And then the family from Spain they're fabulous.
Okay, so it sounds like the expat scene in Braga is doing pretty well.
It is. It's huge. And the number of nationalities is very impressive. I love it.
And there's every couple of weeks there's a meetup, isn't there? That happens. Yeah.
Yeah. The first of every month, there's a massive meetup, absolutely huge. And then every week to every other week, they usually have either a coffee get together or drinks or something. There's always something going on.
Okay. And that first, the meetup at the beginning of the month, it's always at the same place by the gardens, right? That little cafe.
Santa Barbara Gardens. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So listener, if you're going to be in Braga, the first Saturday of the month, right? The first Saturday?
I think it's the second Saturday of the month.
Second Saturday of the month. Then the Santa Barbara Gardens, that area will be a meetup. That's a reliable one. But then how could someone, if they're coming on either on a scouting trip and they'd like to meet some other expats or they're recently moved to Braga, how can they get connected and find out about these?
Well, there are two very popular Facebook groups, which I know a lot of people aren't really thrilled about social media. I myself was one of them, but that is one of the main ways that the community reaches out and kind of keeps in touch with one another, other than the WhatsApp. But there is the Braga Plus Expat group, which is really great. It gives a lot of information on get-togethers, meetups, social events. And then there's also the Braga families, and it's obviously more catered to people with younger children. And they have a lot of meetups as well.
Oh, great. And it's not just Americans. It's all nationalities, right?
Oh, no. Yeah. It's tons of different nationalities.
Yeah, because I think some people are worried that they're going to move from the U.S. and just like, if I'm in one of these groups, then it's going to be like just all Americans or a little bit of a bubble or even an expat bubble. But I mean, even here in Porto, some of these a lot of the expat groups, there's a lot of Portuguese in them as well,
Yes.
that are just interested in meeting new people, or they were expats themselves outside of Portugal and now they're back, so they understand. So it's a great way to meet everyone, not just a certain nationality.
Exactly. Yes. And of course, there are some people that will sort of stay in the bubble, but you'll find that there's fewer of those than you might anticipate.
Yeah, good. So I think when a lot of people think of Braga, they think of only the pedestrian-only area. Is that all of Braga, or what else is going on?
There's so much else. I absolutely love it. There's wonderful parks. The walk up to Bom Jesus, and then from Bom Jesus to São Mauro is beautiful. There's that cork and eucalyptus forest, which is really pleasant. And in the summer, it's always cooler up in the mountains, so it's nice.
Yeah.
And all of the downtown area. So yes, there is the main Avenida Liberdade, but there's also the Avenida Central and the Sé, and there's so much in that historic downtown area with a lot of the Roman ruins, which I really love the history of a city that has been here for so long, however many 100 years BCE. It's fabulous.
Yeah. Do you have a car?
I don't. No.
Okay.
I don't want to get one.
Yeah, good. No, I mean, that's another question that I generally ask people, like when they're looking of where to live. A lot of people, especially from the US, with such a car culture, they just want to kick the car, live without. So then you, with 2 kids, you're able to get around easily by foot, public transportation, Uber. Like, what do you do?
Mostly walk, yes.
Okay.
But we also live in the central area. It's about a 5-minute walk to their school. So we planned around not having a car. We have a lot of friends that live right outside, and they do have cars, but they made the decision that they wanted to live further out, get more land, and have that car. And we decided, no, let's really try and embrace this European lifestyle. And I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, I get that. So good to know, though. So if you want to live in Braga and have a little more space, and you're going to be a little further out, but you probably need a car at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you want to have no car, live in Braga, then stick a little closer to the center area. You don't necessarily have to be in the center. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Now, you don't have to necessarily be in it, right? Because the other parts, like outside of that area, are still walkable, but you want to be, maybe like a 10-minute walk into it would probably be a good radius to have an idea?
Yeah, I would say 15 minutes into the center is still a very walkable distance. It's when you start getting a little further out, then it can be more difficult to find all the shops that you might need. And then when you get there, it's going to be harder to get it home. So it just depends on what you need.
Do they do delivery, like Pingo Doce, Continent, any of those do delivery there?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. We had a day where we were all sick. The whole family were like, we need to order food.
Yeah.
So
that's what I always recommend when people are like, well, I don't, if they're not close to a grocery store, I'm like, just have it delivered,
Yeah,
or when you have like your big run, the heavy stuff, just have it delivered so you don't have to carry it home.
Exactly.
But Braga still has the small like butchers and fruit shops. Those still around as well?
Absolutely. There's one on every neighborhood.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll go to one and it's got the best chicken, and then you'll go to another one and, well, that one has the best pork. So the more you visit, the more you learn which ones are best for certain things. And of course, you've got your separate seafood shops, which are maybe not as prevalent as you would see in Porto and Matosinhos, but there's quite a few here.
Yeah. And then you kind of become known with the owners and the workers, right?
Exactly.
So how then do you communicate in Portuguese? Do they speak English? Like, how does that go?
Mostly try to do everything in Portuguese. Every once in a while, they can see you struggling. Sometimes they'll switch to English. And I'm like, no. let me power through this. I'm working on it. And they're usually very helpful when you are trying to do something. They'll help you figure out what the right words should be. But they're very understanding and very friendly. And there is a large prevalence of English. So if you come here and you don't speak any Portuguese, you can still get by.
Yeah. But definitely want to learn the language.
Absolutely.
They appreciate it so much.
They do. Even just coming in and showing a bon dia, they light up like, oh, yes, you're making an effort.
Yeah. But I can get that, like, you walk into a butcher and you want a certain type of cut and you're like, oh, I don't even know what this word is, or cut a certain way or something. And you're like, oh, I don't know what this word is.
That's exactly it. And you're trying to show them a picture like this. And they're like, no, we don't do that here.
Oh, I know. We've tried to find like brisket.
Yes.
It's like, yeah. Yeah. So you have to adapt a little bit, but yeah, a little bit Google Translate, a little bit of pictures, and then switching between languages, and you get it done.
Absolutely.
So then how's your Portuguese going?
The spoken Portuguese, I feel, is doing pretty well. My biggest issue is being able to understand when someone is speaking to me.
Okay.
So often they're just, to me, it sounds very much like when someone from Puerto Rico is speaking Spanish, they're just, and it's so fast. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Mais devagar.
You learn that
Slow
very
it down.
quickly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And then, of course, they're dropping consonants and vowels. They'll drop entire words, and you're expecting to hear this. And you hear maybe a fraction. Like, did you say what I thought you said? Or is it? So that's always my biggest concern, is being able to understand what's spoken. You try and you do the best you can of picking out the words that you understand.
Yeah. Or sometimes you're so confident in your head, like, I know how to say this. And then you say it and you're like, you feel so good. But then they respond and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what you're saying back to me.
That has happened. Yes.
Yeah. So the struggle, like communication, you have to think, you can do one, like whether it's the speaking or the listening part really well, but you have to be able to do the other to have a conversation.
Yep. Trial and error.
Okay. So let's talk about your books. So you said, you obviously you didn't have a job when you came, and did you start writing because of that, or did you write beforehand? Like, what spurred you on, I guess?
So when we first decided to move to Portugal, I was bound and determined we were going to learn Portuguese, and I wanted to get a head start. So I bought tons of books, and I mean a ton of children's books, thinking this is going to help. And we got the books, and I realized I didn't know how to pronounce any of it. And when I started, I'm pronouncing everything in Spanish, and obviously that is not the right language. So I'm listening to different YouTubes and trying to understand the way that it's spoken so I could sort of teach my kids. And again, when you're speaking it, is that a D or is that a B? And it's really hard to hear when it's a new language. So I thought, what if I just put those major words, the most common ones, and put in phonetics like an English speaker would expect, like a child. And so like bon dia, if I just put bon and the best as you can in English, and then so that a child can go, oh, I may not be 100% on the pronunciation, but I'm pretty darn close.
Yeah. And to know where like the emphasis is, where the accent might be, or just like, you're right, because if you just read it, it's BOM. And so I think if you're a really beginner, an American or an English speaker might go boom, or, like really pronounce that and it's not something that they actually do here. And so actually it can really trip you up, because if you're so used to reading it and then in your head you've been saying it the wrong way because you're like, oh, I know what that says. But then you've been saying it the wrong way, then it's even harder to switch it and be like, that's not how I say it. So you're right. Like reading, you really need to be able to hear it or know
Yes.
how it's pronounced to make sure that you don't get it stuck in your head the wrong way. Because then switching it to the right way could be hard.
Yeah, I think it is harder to switch once you have it in your head, or if you're pronouncing it wrong in the first place. A lot of people I've noticed are putting the emphasis on certain parts of the word where it's supposed to be the penultimate, but not always. Azul, it's
Of
not,
course not.
azul, it's
Yeah.
azul. So you just have to figure it out as you go along, which is why I was trying to kind of give my kids that leg up so that there's less guesswork in it. So I made it actually for my kids. I wrote the book for my kids. And then I was like, why am I just keeping it? Why don't I try and see if other people might be interested? And then I expanded from there.
Yeah, it's an amazing idea. Were you an author beforehand, or it was because of this that you started doing the books?
It was because of this. I mean,
Okay.
I did a lot of writing in my job, but never for anything like this.
Yeah. And I've noticed too, like when reading, like Spanish is, I think, a really easy language in the sense that you pronounce every letter. So like you can actually, with Spanish, you could probably, as long as you know the sounds of the letters, you could read it and probably be pretty close to the pronunciation. But Portuguese is so different when it comes to that. Yeah.
And it's a stress time language, like English. Where that's why I think Spanish is an easier language to learn, because you don't have to worry about where is this stress. Whereas English, it's difficult, and Portuguese, one says, "What are you doing today?" It's "What you doing?"
Right.
So you got to get familiar with the way that people speak and the intonations and those stress syllables.
Yeah. And I mean, just like English, there's exceptions to the rules. So it's like, here's the rule, but here's the exception. And you're like, oh, no, okay. You just have to memorize. Why is it like this? You just have to memorize it, And then the other layer too is we get exposed to a lot more Brazilian Portuguese than we do European Portuguese, just with media and maybe being close, the US is closer. There's a lot of Brazilians that come up to Florida, especially. So then, and so much like translation as well. I was actually just noticing that Google Translate on the computer finally now has the Portuguese was always translating to Brazilian Portuguese. Now there's actually, you can change it to European. So it's like, this is becoming more of a thing, but that's also another struggle, because you might be like, oh, I know this. Same way with Spanish, right? We learn Latin American Spanish in schools in the US. So you're like, oh, I know this. And then you go to Spain and you're like, oh, I don't know this. that's a different word. They say that very differently, or whatever it might be. So you've got all of these layers when you move to Portugal about learning Portuguese. Thankfully, the Portuguese are very kind and helping you and guiding you.
Yeah, they're wonderful people.
Okay, so you started this book. What was the first book? Like, what were some of the first words, I guess, that you wrote, or what did the first book look like?
The first book was the alphabet, because I figured, well, let's just start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's just figure out what the alphabet is, so I kind of can have an idea of what these letters are pronounced like. And sometimes it's easy. Most of the A's are going to sound pretty similar, except if it's at the end of a word. But then there's an S. Like sometimes it's a sh, and sometimes it's a z, sometimes it's a s, and you just got to figure it out. But so we started with the alphabet just to kind of get that basis, and then we went to numbers and colors, because I figured with my kids, it's one of the things that they always want to know, are numbers and colors.
Okay, so then currently you mainly just have books with different words, and some of them have a few sentences, like common sentences, right?
Yes, I have 2 books where I'm really focused more on common phrases, getting around how much does this cost, basic places like a bus stop, a ticket counter, things like that, so that if you need help getting around, this is kind of a guide.
Good. So it's not, it's for beginners, but not just kids, because of course you could have, like, if you need to know about, one of them's like asking directions, like, so right, left, and like, where is this? So still kids need to know, but adults do as well. So still helpful. So good for everyone in the family.
It is. My mom actually used them when she came to visit.
Did she walk around with the book?
Children's books. Yes. She's like reading that. Bon dia.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute. So then, do you have hopes of creating more that are a little more complex?
Yes, I'm trying to. I did sort of the basics, and now I'm trying to broaden to incorporate more common phrases, things that people will need to get started in their language learning journey. And then I want to start expanding to be more like the picture books, which I currently have, and more, here is a listing of things that are really important for you to learn. I still want to include the phonetics so they can read it easily, but I do want to expand on. And then we want to try and turn some of the books into videos so that kids can read it, but then they can watch it and they can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think between the two, they'll become more comfortable.
Yeah, that's great. So definitely having the phonetics, I think that's what sets the books aside from other books that I've seen, is that you have the phonetics, so how to pronounce it. But now that's good with pairing, also being able to listen,
Yes.
to understand it. Great. Well, where can someone buy these books?
Well, they're available through Amazon, but I have a link on my website because I wanted to make sure that I explain what each book is about and try and give them a little more of an in-depth idea on what these books are. So they can click through my website and go through there. Also, if they sign up for my newsletter, I don't have that, sorry, my mailing list, then they'll get the phonetic guide for free. It's about 6 pages. I wanted to make sure I had a lot of in-depth information in there.
Yeah. What's the name of your website?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that.
thriftyexplorations.com.
Okay. And then if someone were to look up Thrifty Explorations on Amazon, it should come up as well, or what should they search?
It should. Thrifty Explorations, maybe Portuguese. It's still one of the newer books, so it may not be one of the top choices, but you still should see it should be one of the top.
Okay. But you can definitely go to the website and make sure that if you're going to order off of Amazon, that it's the right one by cross-checking with the website.
Exactly. And on the website, I try to give, because the two main marketplaces that I see mostly are Spain and then the US. So those are the 2 links that I have right there on the website. And then if you live somewhere else, Japan, the UK, Canada, there's another click that you just click there and then you pick which marketplace you are, and then it'll take you to that specific Amazon.
Okay. Okay, good to know. And we talked about doing a free giveaway for our listeners.
Yes.
So what we'll do is we'll post something on our Instagram and we'll tag you. And then we'll give the directions on the Instagram, comment here. You'll collect those comments and then you'll do a drawing giveaway and give away a couple free books. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
Yes.
So listener, if you want to get involved in that, then check our Instagram, Expats Everywhere, Instagram and Facebook. It'll go on both and then we'll tag you. So it should be on your Instagram as well. And you can, of course, post as well on yours. And then we can collect those and get you some free books. So that'll be fun. Yay. But yes, but Sia loves them. So when she got them, we read them all the time. And she thinks it's funny. Like she always wants me to do the Portuguese and I'll do it in Portuguese and she'll do it in English. And I'm like, why don't you do the Portuguese? Your pronunciation is better than mine. But I think she just wants to laugh.
Oh, I'm so thrilled that she likes them. It means a lot. I love to hear that.
Yeah. Now, I guess since your kids are obviously more advanced, being a little older, they still look at them? Or
they do.
Okay, yeah.
And they also love, on the last page, of course, I say dedicated to my kids. And so they'll point, that's me.
Yeah, that's cute. Yeah. No, but they're very colorful anyway. And so, I mean, really, they're a lot of fun to go through because obviously Sia knows the words as well, but she still loves going through them especially when we do like a nighttime book. She'll get them out. Yeah. She tries to do a couple because she's like, they're short. And I'm like, okay. Only maybe one tonight.
Yeah, it's great. And actually my oldest will even help me. I make sure that before I publish anything, I run it by him and he's like, yep, that's right. That's the right pronunciation. So I put him to work.
Yeah.
Child labor.
That's funny. Okay, great. So we're excited to share the books with our listener, but let's go ahead and get back a little bit to Braga. You said it felt like home when you first came on your scouting trip, and almost 2 years on, does it still feel like home?
Absolutely. I fall in love with this city more and more every day.
What's something that's different being in Braga or just Portugal in general that was that you've changed from when you lived in Florida?
I feel like just my everyday life is more relaxed. And it doesn't mean that I'm not incredibly busy running around, but I feel that the atmosphere itself is a much more relaxed, accepting, and comfortable. Whereas in the United States, I always felt like it's go, 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 stress, 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 stress. And even when everything is done, you kind of always have this tension. Whereas I'm here and it's just, even on your stress days, you're like, it's okay. We got this. It's the whole atmosphere of the country that I really feel like you can almost feel the calmness wash over you.
Yeah, that's amazing. What about the weather? You were talking about how it's cooler to get up into some of the forested areas because it gets pretty hot there in the summer, right?
It can. Well, coming from Florida, it's fine.
That's true. That's true. All about perspective. When people say, "Oh, I hear the north of Portugal is cold," I'm like, "Tell that to a Canadian."
Exactly.
You know?
Yes. It was quite a difference for us to have the winters here, but my thing is, as long as it doesn't snow, I'm good.
Yeah.
So this was fine, and I love having 4 seasons.
Yeah. Oh, that's also different than Florida, huh?
It is very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you get 4 seasons there. It can get kind of hot in the summers. I mean, because you guys are set in a bit more of a valley. So sometimes the heat can hold in a little bit.
It can, but you really do feel the breeze that come off of the mountains. So even on the hot days, you usually have a breeze. And then at night, it drops quite significantly. Whereas in the US, it'll be 104. And then at night, it gets down to 85.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not
drops,
really that cool.
But
yeah, exactly. Whereas here, yes, it might get up to 90, but in the evening, it's, in the 60s.
Okay. Now, did you get caught up in any of the bureaucratic issues, paperwork, visa stuff, or was it pretty smooth for you?
We had a couple of hiccups here and there. We'd had to reapply for one minor thing, but it was very streamlined. They were very upfront about, we just need you to redo this. And we sent them an email, I think the next day, that had the one additional thing that they needed. And that was it. So I think that they've kind of learned as they've gone along. And I know that some people will still have issues, but ours was pretty straightforward.
Okay. And you're coming up on your renewal?
Will be, yeah, soon.
Yeah.
So that's the test.
Yeah. So that's kind of the big talk right now is just being able to get one of those appointments. It can be kind of tough. But do you have to, I mean, with your husband's job, does he have to go in and out of Portugal, like travel much, or is he here and it's okay?
He's mostly here. They do, for the people that live in the US, they do have get-togethers once a year. But there's another gentleman that they've recently hired, I think from Poland. So the people that live in the EU are not expected or required to go back to the US for any of those meetups. They can just phone in.
Okay. All right. Or, you could do since there's 2 now, you can have your own little meetup here somewhere in Europe.
There we go. Why not?
That's funny. But he has to keep U.S. hours then. So he works in the evenings?
Well, he starts work when he gets home, which is kind of great because he works in machine learning. So he's able to get out a lot of the code before anyone else gets up. And then once he's finished and they're online, they can go through and work through any issues. Sometimes he has to work until 6, but usually that's about it.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, not bad at all.
Yeah, I've heard that is a perk that when you are working over here, since you wake up before everyone, you can get stuff done before people even wake up. So that's one of the good things about it. And, even if you have to maybe work a little later in the day.
Yeah, I think it works out because then you can really put your head down and get a lot of work accomplished instead of having someone ping you every few minutes. Hey, can you do this? Hey, I have a question here. It's just like, I need to get work done. Right.
That's true. It's uninterrupted because everyone's sleeping in the U.S.
Exactly.
Yeah, or at least not to work yet. Okay, so with Braga, you've talked how you loved it, but no place is perfect. So is there anything in Braga that you wish was a little different or that you have a problem with?
I wouldn't say problem, but there's a lot of rain.
Okay.
We knew this going in when we did our scouting trip. We actually came in the rainy season. And I figured if I can fall in love with it in the rainy season, I can deal with it. Mm-hmm. It can be quite difficult, especially when you're in those super rainy months and you've got an entire month of just nonstop rain.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a trudge walking to and from school and then to the stores. But that was the first year we came. And this past year, it wasn't really as bad. So I think it really just depends. There are some years that are really tough, and then there are other years that are quite lovely. Take the good with the bad. But I think that's really the only thing that I'm just kind of like, Braga.
Yeah. Now, would you say Braga, like what kind of person is Braga not for? Like, I mean, is there enough nightlife that a young person could live there? Or would you say, no, not really? Or, obviously you think it's good for families, older people. Like, is there someone that you'd be like, I don't know if you'd like Braga because of this?
I think the very young, especially someone who maybe doesn't have kids, there may not be the vibrancy and the nightlife that someone who's really in their 20s, late teens would want. There are colleges here, so I know that there is a lot of younger oriented things. Most of the time when I hear of the older children, teenagers, they always want to go to Porto because that's where it's happening. That's where all the big stuff, usually when you get any kind of big musical guests, they're going to go into Porto and not come to Braga. So I would really say that's the only group of people that I would see as maybe not as ideal for.
Okay. But families, obviously, it's good. There's a lot of families there. I know of a lot of retirees. Are there other?
Yes.
And not to say, in a funny way, but too many retirees? Or do you find that there's a good mix?
It is mostly retirees.
Okay. You said it, not me.
And it can be frustrating, like, must be nice. But I think it is perfect for retirees because it is a much more laid back atmosphere here, which is why I think it's great for families. And we are starting to see a number of more families join in. So I welcome that influx of families. But of course, I think that's really the two main groups are the retirees who are wanting kind of that laid back lifestyle. And then the people who are coming with younger kids that want to have a little more, community feel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. On your scouting trip, you loved Braga. Were there any other places around Portugal that were, a close second, third?
Silver Coast.
Okay.
Loved it. It's such a beautiful area. It was flat, but not too flat. The Lisbon and Porto was a lot of hills, and I loved it. I think my husband was going to die. He was like, nah. But the Silver Coast was just really lovely. The people there, again, were just very laid back and welcoming. So that would have been another option for us. But once we came to Braga, we're like, no, this is it.
This is it. Yeah. I think one of the things with Silver Coast is probably needing a car would be a little more necessary. So if that was one of the things you didn't want to have, then that would be a kind of an X mark on the Silver Coast because of needing a car. Whereas Braga, you can obviously be fine without one.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So since you've been here, have you been able to travel anywhere else around Europe?
We have, yes. We've traveled, obviously, to Spain. Very easy. We're actually going there next week. We've been to Iceland and Ireland and Scotland and Netherlands and England. We've been around a bit.
Yeah, good. And your kids, they like traveling?
They love it. They really do. And I think they're getting the idea that there are so many different cultures and they get excited to experience it and embrace it. And I love that about them. They're very open-minded. And I think that's something that travel does for people is it really expands their minds and horizons. And to see my kids having that experience at a young age makes me really excited.
Yeah, that's great. Have you guys been back to the States at all or not yet?
No.
Not yet, yeah. But you've had family and friends come visit or just family?
Yes. No, family and friends. We've had friends from the UK, from the US. We love having people come and visit us, but I don't really have a desire to go back.
Yeah, nothing drawing you back, like not even for a visit?
No.
Nothing you miss?
Grits.
Grits, okay.
Really good Mexican food. That's harder to find here.
Yeah. Yeah, when people come visit, they're like, what can I bring you? And I'm like, we don't need anything. Generally, I just say Chick-fil-A sauce. Because I do love Chick-fil-A sauce, and obviously you can't get it here. And
Yep.
I'm just like, well, I don't really need anything, but that is something that I do enjoy. So if you want to bring a bottle of Chick-fil-A sauce, then go for it.
Yep. Hot sauce, grits. Yeah. Some things are just harder to get here.
Yeah. But you just adjust, right?
Exactly.
And it's totally worth it. I mean, I think that people think maybe I can't cope without this stuff. But once you get here and you find alternatives or different ways of doing things, and you realize, oh, I didn't actually need that thing as much as I thought I did.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, they end up packing up their entire house with pallets full of stuff. And then they get here and they're like, I didn't really need all this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Did you guys just come with suitcases?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suitcase and a bag each.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Same with us. So everyone's different though. Sometimes, people have heirlooms or things that they don't want to part with, and they're actually selling their home and getting rid of stuff. So it's like, okay, bring some of that stuff over. But I always tell people that you can find furniture here and beds here and clothes here. So if you're not really like, have some sort of sentimental value to it, sometimes it's just easier to let it go and then find your new stuff here.
Exactly.
And that can be a learning curve too. I mean, it is hard to find certain things here. It's just set up differently. So you got to give yourself a little bit of time to find your go-to places. But once you do, you're good.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Virginia, it was really great talking to you, and I'm really excited about your books. And we'll put your email address and your website in the show notes in the description of this video. And then, of course, listener, be on the lookout for the different posts that we have on Instagram and Facebook so we can do that giveaway. And we had a great time talking to you today about Braga and your books. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.